Hello, everyone. I'm Mickey Duzdovich, and welcome to SBIFF Film Talk. Tonight's film, we're going to be talking about the short comedy Heirloom. And our guest tonight is co-writer, producer, director, actor, Paul Walter Hauser. Welcome, Paul. How
Oh,
you
hey
doing?
guys, how you doing? Good to be here.
Good to
Thanks,
see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
thanks for having me, Mickey. I love. I have a lot of history in Santa Barbara. I went on a miniature honeymoon with my wife there, and of course, I've gotten to promote movies there and go to the festival. It's a really fun town. I hope to get there sometime later this year when we're not living in the third act of a psychotic Roland Emmerich film. Yeah,
Well, we'd love to get you back here. That's for sure.
me too.
So I wanted to start it out with Heirloom. Where'd the idea for this short come from?
You know, me and my buddy Raleigh Kane, who co-wrote the film
Yeah.
and plays the title character of Ryan, she and I wanted to make something together. We're friends. We both have a quirky sort of sense of humor. And I think we latched onto this idea of sort of culture clashing. Like, how do you have very dissimilar people have to coexist, and what does that look like? And for me, the jumping off point was I kind of told her, I was like, there's this scene in Boogie Nights where Alfred Molina is, if you haven't seen the film, sorry, spoiler alert, it's been 23 years. You had plenty of time. um, there's a scene in the film where Alfred Molina, of course, famously is selling drugs to, Thomas Jane and John C. Reilly and Mark Wahlberg. And it's a crazy, weird, memorable scene. And I told my buddy Raleigh, I said, what I would love to do sort of a more gentle sort of funny awkward version of that scene if we could like try to figure that out. And I hope we accomplish some version of that. I like the awkwardness in our movie.
Yeah, it's super fun. And I was actually, you now mentioning it, I was just thinking about it, and I couldn't only imagine if I got stuck in quarantine with that cast of people that you
Yeah, it would be
created.
very. Oh, my brother's dog is attacking me. It would be interesting to be stuck with those people. And I think, in a weird way, in a profound way, they kind of affect each other, right? Like they think it's just this fluke of a moment, but it's like, is Caitlin Carver's character actually kind of in love with this weirdo guy? And is this girl really having an emotional, spiritual awakening moment because of her conversation with my character? And I think that's some of the takeaway from the film, hopefully.
And I want to talk a little bit about the ensemble that you put together. Everybody plays their part perfectly to a T, and they're so fun. Like there's not one character doesn't have like a line that makes you laugh. Can you talk a little bit about casting the film and creating these lines for everyone?
Thanks. Yeah, that's like, I think one of the most fun parts of the whole process is casting. It becomes so much more real. And with this film, between Raleigh and I, when we co-wrote it, we're actors, so we're friends with all these other stand-up comics and actors and musicians, and it's like the problem becomes we have too many good people to cast, and how do you like not leave people out, and how do you try to include everybody, which is impossible. But for me, it was like Caitlin Carver and I did I, Tonya together, and
Yeah.
she famously played Tonya Harding, or I'm sorry, she famously played Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah.
And we didn't even share a scene together, but we became buddies from the film. And I thought putting her with Aidan Mayeri, who appeared in that Julia Roberts show Homecoming, Aidan Mayeri and Caitlin Carver, and then Raleigh, the co-writer, the three of them, I just thought would make for a really cool, interesting trio of women. And then the guys, Julian Gant, my buddy, who's now starring in Mayim Bialik's new show Call Me Kat. He's a Groundlings favorite, and he plays that boyfriend who's just got the crazy laugh and the great one-liners. And then his girlfriend is played by my buddy Bridget Wolf. Bridget, I know from Saginaw, Michigan. She and I were homecoming king and queen in high school. So we've just been buddies for forever. And I thought, I'll throw her in. So it's the whole cast is a hodgepodge of friends and different backstories. And I think, the one I was really proud of too was getting I got this guy who, I've been such a fan of this kid. He was in that movie Win Win with Paul
Yeah,
Giamatti.
yeah.
And he went toe to toe with Paul Giamatti, and I was just so impressed by him. So I made an offer, and we had a little bit of money, not a lot, but we flew him out from New York and had him in the film, and it was perfect. It was really cool.
That was the guy who played Nick, right?
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah,
kills it. He crushed
yeah.
it.
It was a really funny moment with them. Um, I want to talk a little bit about you being an actor and being in mostly comedy films and some dramas. Transferring that over into writing for yourself, because you play a character in this film as well. Can you talk a little bit about writing for yourself and writing these sarcastic one-liners?
Yeah, I never wanted to play that part. We were we kind of wrote that part for an older actor. We wanted somebody like Johnny Knoxville or Luke Wilson, like somebody in their mid to late 40s who looked kind of somewhere between sweet and grizzled, like they've kind of lived a hard life and they're kind of tired. So that was the aim. And I'm like probably 13 years younger than those guys. So, I wasn't planning on playing it. And then 2 days before the film, we kept making offers to people and emailing and texting to different people, and it just wasn't panning out. And one of my producers who sunk some money into the short, he said, some of the people that have paid for this short film to be made, they did it because they like you and believe in you and are fans of what you do. So like it would only mean more to everybody if you would act in the thing. And he gave me this little mini speech, and I was like, that's sweet. Yeah, okay, I'll just do it. So I wasn't really aiming to do it. And I think, sometimes I can become hypercritical when, like, there's so many things to think about, and then you start getting on yourself for, was that take good? It doesn't matter. We got to make our day. I got to move on. It can be a lot, very high pressure, but I'm glad I did it. It was fun. It was kind of like a Danny McBride meets Michael Shannon type of character. It was cool.
And that brings me into my next question, because you are the director of this film. How was it having to direct and also be in the film itself?
It was tough. Yeah, it was. There's a lot to think about. I'm thinking of ad lib, improv type one liners to throw my cast. I'm concerned about the lighting. I'm concerned making sure lunch is on time. I'm concerned with, making sure we don't have too much auditory peripheral noise. The other thing is, it's not like you're on a sound stage where you can have everything dead quiet. We have to work around barking dogs and somebody who just decides to do band practice at 3 p.m. in the afternoon next door. Like, you never know what you're going to encounter in that sort of indie guerrilla style DIY space. So, yeah, I really didn't want to act in that short. I'm glad it turned out okay, and I'm happy with it. But it's a lot to take on. My directorial debut, feature wise, that I plan to shoot this year, November of this year, is The Hope. I have financing, I have cast members, but we're playing everything by ear because of COVID and life is crazy. But I purposely wrote myself like a smaller part in that movie where I can have fun. I can work for maybe 3-4 days and then I'm out. So in the future, that's kind of how I'd like to do it. Where if I'm going to direct, hopefully I won't bite off more than I can chew.
Yeah. And you mentioned improv, and I was going to talk to you about, since you have a bunch of comedians, how much of the film ended up being improv and stuck to the script, or were you pretty willing to allow them to improv? And
Yeah, I'm a mixture of both when I direct. Is I want to get the page because selfishly, me and Raleigh had envisioned all these miniature moments and stuff, and that's important to us and hopefully to tell the story. But I don't think we're overly precious at all. I do line-oramas where it's like, okay, if we got 1 to 3 takes of the clean stuff, let's do 2 more where you improv. And some people aren't even into improvisation. They don't like it. But I still push them almost like a teacher in a classroom setting where I go, you don't have to be the funniest person. I'm not looking for you to kill me with laughter. Just be unique and come from where you feel your character's at and tell me something I don't know. You tell me who the character is in this moment. And that can be fun. And sometimes those are the takes you use. And that's really cool. I think the actors find it fun and emboldening too, most of them at least. I think the most fun we had is when the guy playing Nick is sitting on the floor. He's sitting on the ground and he's vaping over and over again. We just kept giving him one liners to say, like, just say this. We don't know when we're gonna plug it in. We don't know how we're gonna do it, but just keep trying different lines. And there was a line where he's making fun of Caitlin's character, and he said, you're like if he said something like, you're saltless. SALTLESS, you're saltless. And I totally knew what the character meant when he said that. Her character has no flavor. She's like
Yeah.
plain Jane. But the way he said it, I thought was so funny. You're saltless. It's such a stoner thing to say about. So, that's I think that's the most fun thing is if you explore long enough, you'll just get the one weird thing that's
Yeah.
better than anything I could have written.
That's great.
Yeah.
And there is a line in there that just seems like a deep cut, and I'm wondering where this came from. But you look at the character after you've introduced yourself as Ralph and go, you look like Anne of Green Gables. Where'd that come from? Because that's such a deep cut.
Yeah, I was born in 1986, so I just think it lines up where somewhere in my childhood in the early 90s, we watched Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea when we were little kids. And that's one of those lines too where I just did 8, 9, 10 different versions of that moment. And that's one of those things where I'm okay with not everybody getting the joke. I don't need everybody to. That's a very self-amusement type of moment for me. And anyone who does get it, the 1 out of 70 people who would get it, like hopefully they love it.
And I also want to talk a little bit about the drug scene of the character hitting the bong, and actually like you film it in such a unique way, so close up on her
Yeah.
eyes, and her eyes speak a mound around, like how wide she opens those eyes. You can just tell that
Yeah.
that character is messed up at that moment. Can you talk a little bit about the shooting of that scene and the interaction with the sound as well?
Yeah, it was the most fun thing to shoot and edit. As far as I just had I don't know how Raleigh felt in writing that with me, but I really just had this vision of someone who doesn't engage in drugs at all. What is that moment like for them? How does it alter them? How can you make it funny but kind of profound? I'm a spiritual guy. I'm a religious guy. I'm a big Jesus guy. So like for me, I love that moment where we have her like freaking out and then all the audio drops out and she goes, "Oh, that's just the devil." And then the song kicks in. And it's like, that is how people feel, whether it's true or not. We equate certain things to other attachments, and I wanted the audience to kind of get in her brain of wherever she was at in that moment. So I would say editing wise, my editor, Christina Noel, is incredible. And she and I spent probably 2 sessions, like 4 hours maybe, just editing that montage. And it was all about, to me, it was all about the timing and about getting the most interesting pieces because we just had a million different things we could have used.
And to mention that montage, you go, and once the song kicks in, it reverts back to you in the bedroom, and you're being blessed in the holy water and everything. Can you talk a little bit about that scene in filming the blessing scene in the bedroom, because it's so well lit, and it really brings you into that moment of someone being almost reborn, and you do such a great job of showing that on camera. Can you talk a little bit about that moment?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, there's 3 shorts I've directed, and in 2 of them I do this similar shot where I love showing 2 people and then seeing a third person emerge between them.
Yeah.
And I did it in my first short, called Messy. I didn't do it in my second short, Kiss Me When I'm Down. I didn't get to really explore that shot, and then I knew I wanted it in this one, so I just love Chloe Lanier, my buddy. She's got a daytime Emmy for acting in this soap opera, General Hospital, and she's a really great actress. So the fact that I asked her to do something so tiny and silly is really cool that she did it. But we set it up, and we wanted there to be that moment of the song ends, the camera's kind of free held, and we're kind of hanging there like maybe something good happened just now. And then a second later, she's screaming at him, and we feel the chaos. we have that sort of score that my buddy came up with, which is kind of an ode to Birdman's little jazz background noise, and suddenly it's chaos again after the moment that you think is settled. So yeah, that was a really fun thing to shoot, and I think once again it's tough where there's an ensemble cast. I love ensembles. A lot of short films that are really great, they only use like two actors. It's a little kid and the mother or something. And it for me, I love these rich, weird, funny people, these characters, and I you take on more responsibility when you have to shoot all that. But I think it was worth it.
Yeah. How long did she have to lay there hidden underneath all that stuff? How many
She
takes did
she
that
laid
take?
under there for a bunch, man. She was under there for a while, like probably 40 minutes total, off and on, just having to set up and break down. But we were worried at one point about the continuity of the clothing. We were like, how do we make it look like? And then at some point, I forget who it was. It was me or somebody else. We were just like, the audience is never going to care about that. Like this guy's being baptized on his knees in his bedroom. Like they don't care that the sweatpants were lined up at the right. But that's the stuff you worry about on the day. You're worried about the minutia and you don't want to look stupid. And that we didn't have carpeting in that room. That bedroom was wood flooring. So we had to fake that and buy carpeting, lay it flat, make it look like there was carpet, and then of course cut out a square of it and pull up a fake board and make it look like we did that. So we faked that, and I'm really proud of it because I think it looks legitimate, but it is that weird thing of the carpet keeps bunching up, and we're like, our camera guy's like, hold, we got a light, hold, her leg is sticking out on the side of the bed, hold, the carpet's bunching up, and I'm like, oh God. And that's the stuff you want to catch on the day because you get in the edit room and you just want to slap yourself in the face because you're like, oh, this is why you make short films before making a feature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to go back into a little bit more about the lighting. Since it takes place around a lot of windows, did
Yeah.
you have any issues with natural light, or did you try to block it out so you could just use your own lighting, or how did that all
Yeah.
go about?
That was tough. I really wanted it to look a lot more dingy and dark. I was kind of going for more of like, the look of maybe the interior in like Hesher with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like, kind of wanted it to look rock and roll and dingy. And instead, my DP Caleb Wall, who's like one of my best friends, he was like, no, let's really blow it out and let's kind of give it this lightness and make it look nice. And then he kind of wanted to do the opposite, and I think it works. I'm happy with what he did, but it was different than what I envisioned or imagined. I think we used natural light, but then we also kind of blew it out with exterior lights outside. But hopefully, I kept seeing and mind you, I'm not like one of those directors who knows lenses and stuff. I'm still like figuring all that out. But there was this little white sheet that kept waving, and I kept telling Caleb, I'm like, is that going to show on camera? Is that going to, all these like green director questions. And he had to keep like telling me like, dude, I know what I'm doing. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just go look at your script. I'm still, as a young director, as somebody who's only done 3 or 4 shorts, you worry about the things that you don't know about. And then that's why hopefully the advice I would give to anybody else is just hire really great people, and then you usually don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I want to bring up the character of Mom, because it's such a small little part, but it adds so much to it. Just having her show up and then leading on to the joke, is that your mom? And then having that guy pop up out at the end looking for Mom out of nowhere. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Where's Mom? Yeah, no, what was funny is, so the background on that is we had already written the script and we're kind of happy with it and we're moving forward. And then out of nowhere, I had thought of my buddy Asta Lee. She and I have known each other for forever. She's the one who played Mom. And I just thought, like, let's throw her in as like this sketchy woman who lives in the house and they call her Mom. And we don't know if she's actually somebody's mom or if she's just like a tweaker who lives in the house. So I made Alex Schaefer call her Mom, Nick. Alex Schaefer, he's like calling her Mom. Then she leaves super sketched out. We did a bunch of versions of that. And I feel bad for my buddy Asta because I just kept telling her, I was like, weirder, louder. I was like, try to scare yourself. Like, do the weirdest thing you can think to do. And that's a vulnerable thing to ask of an actor when they're getting paid, $50 to do a short or whatever. Like, it's to just say to them, can you really go all out and be ridiculous? But she did it masterfully and cracked everybody up, and it added to the awkwardness of the house. I wanted to set an environment where you kind of don't know what could happen. And at the end, when the house squatter, that guy Devin Sirocco, walks out and goes, "Where's mom?" And he's wearing one of my beanie caps actually in the short. Devin was just like a PA. He like came by, was friends with the producer, super sweet kid who was like busting his butt to help us out. I barely knew him. And he was so nice, and he told us a couple times that he was an actor, but he wasn't like bugging me about it. He was just saying that he loved acting, and I took a class with so and so and all this stuff. So at the last minute, I kind of looked at the producer. I was like, let's throw Devin in. And we threw him in and gave him that line, and he nailed it. And it's a funny little weird moment. And I think it was a fun moment for him because he showed up to be like an unpaid PA to just hang out and help out. And he ended up on screen in the movie. And I think that's a good lesson to learn for people is, you show up. You never know what's going to happen when somebody sees you
Yeah.
putting forth the effort.
Yeah, and it really it adds to the chaos of what's going on, because then it becomes like a fun house. You're trying to get out of there, and
Yeah.
this thing just pops out of nowhere looking for mom. And
Oh yeah. I mean, if it were up to me, that exit scene of trying to get out of the house would have been 2-3 more minutes long. It would have been, like they walk into a boiler room in the basement or something. Like I would have loved to have made it even weirder. But there were things that ended up on the cutting room floor. I think the first cut was like 16 minutes. And I was like, this is never going to get put into a festival. They'll never make room for that. Like, I think we chopped 4 or 5 minutes out. But there was a whole thing at the beginning where we had like a stuffed animal nailed to a tree and duct taped to a tree. And it said, F Harvey Weinstein, with an exclamation point written in Sharpie on its chest. And we had a dead cat and like some weapons. Like, we made the front yard look really harrowing and creepy. And it was supposed to be a sign of things to come. And then when we got in the cutting room, we were like, this is way too long. We got to cut some of the fun. We got to trim the fat.
And I did want to talk a little bit about the musical score for this, because it is wonderful, and you had mentioned it a little
Thanks.
bit. But especially at the beginning, when he chose to go with a jazz drum beat for the opener, can you talk a little bit about that choice of a drum instead of a violin or a piano? You go straight with a drum kit, and it's amazing.
Thanks. I think what happened was we were talking about how to get a score, and I was talking to a lot of local indie sort of composers who they like work under other composers. They're like assistants or session musicians or something. And this guy Sebastian Zuleta, he did the score for this brilliant little animated short film. And I was so blown away, and I was like, what you did in that, what we need for this is way less than what you did in that. Are you even interested in doing this? And I gave him Birdman and a couple things as a reference, and just said, have fun with it, try something out. And we played it over the driving sequence when they pull up, and then the exit. And I think I underestimated how much a score can bring the whole thing together. When I rewatch it, it's hard to imagine it without those little things. Those little things are actually big things. And I'm a big fan of the song at the end. I think it's the song Carousel, right?
Carousel Ride by Rubble Bucket.
Rubble Bucket. Yeah,
Yeah.
I paid out of pocket for that song. And it wasn't cheap, but it was me just going, I love this song, and it feels like kind of a feminine rock song that really works with that trio of girls and the fun of the short. And I like the timing of it. I'm obsessed with timing the song with the end credits, and I do that on all my shorts. So yeah, the music became a really big part of the identity for me. It really brought it all together.
Yeah, and then the song from American Opera, Dear
Right.
Devil, fits so perfectly with that scene.
I can't compliment that song enough. I mean, that's that guy who it's like a one-man band essentially. This guy John Bonham, John B, he calls himself. but he and I are from the same hometown. I love his band American Opera, and he's like me. He's a Christian. He's gone through a lot of tough times, and some of his music is very exemplary, kind of like Pedro the Lion or one of those bands. It's very exemplary of like the struggle of faith and how to keep faith as you get older. And that song Dear Devil was a great example of that. And he, very kindly, graciously let us basically have the song for free, which was cool.
That's awesome. Well, you made a fan here. I started listening to his music. It's actually really,
Oh,
really good.
good. Yeah, please, if anybody's watching this, go search out American Opera. He has an album from, I think, 2018 or something. In the last couple of years, I really love it.
And I want to, as an actor, and you've worked with a bunch of huge directors out there. Did you take anything from their directing to put into the shorts that you create as going behind the camera? Are there things that you've learned through acting about directing?
Yes, so I shot Heirloom January of 2019. So it's been about 2 years. It was before I worked with Eastwood and before I worked with Spike and Craig Gillespie again. So for me, directing is all about everybody has to know what movie we're making. We're all on the same page from a tonal standpoint. The tone within the genre, the story. Like I need to know that we're all making the same movie, and then after that, it's like it's about letting the departments do their job. Not micromanaging, but also if you have an opinion, share it early because you don't want to, embolden someone to go be creative and then cut them off at the waistline because you didn't tell them enough information. So communication is key, and then I think on the day it's about keeping it fun. I really try to set an atmosphere, and I think if you asked any of the actors I worked with, I hope they would back this up, that I fight to set a really fun atmosphere. So if somebody has an idea for a shot and they're not even in the camera department, I'm going to hear it. If someone has improv, I'm going to let them do it. I'm going to make sure there's way too much at Crafty and way too much at lunch and alcohol at night when we wrap. Like it's about making sure people feel seen and taken care of, and that they walk away feeling like they had fun, even if it's tough material. Because a lot of what I've directed has been comedic, but eventually I would like to make really serious stuff. And even in the event of doing that, I want to make sure people feel loved and feel seen and feel like they were at adult summer camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it really shines through as a fun set through this short.
Yeah.
It looks like everybody was having fun.
Well, if I could give 3 takeaways, you asked what I learned from those
Yeah.
directors. Craig Gillespie is all about to me, Craig Gillespie is all about doing the homework, showing up super prepared. So that to me, Craig is all about prep. Spike Lee is all about confidence and emboldening the actors. He trusts his actors really implicitly. And with Eastwood, I think it's all about instinct, gut instinct, and sort of not being afraid to throw stuff away and just kind of live loose on set, which when you make 40 movies, you're probably earning that sort of comfortability. I don't know that I'll be that comfortable in my first movie.
Oh man. And I wanted to also talk a little bit about it's very difficult to shoot in such small spaces, and you're shooting in very, very condensed area. But you managed to frame it so openly and in such a wonderful way. Can you talk a little bit about how it is for you behind the camera, framing all these characters to fit in such a small space?
Yeah, that was, I think the low angles on the people sitting on the couch, that was intentional. That was to kind of feel like we're at their feet and kind of make it look a little bit bigger. Um, I would say in the bedroom it was tricky because we didn't have a lot of room there, and it was kind of straightforward and straight on. My favorite one is that we were able to sneak in that 2 shot with Chloe Lanier emerging out of the laundry on the bed. That I didn't even know that if we would have room for that, but we did, and made that work. So yeah, I remember I met Rob Reiner at UCB Theater when I first moved to LA, probably like 11 years ago or something. And he was super nice, and like I bugged him and asked him questions about A Few Good Men and stuff. And he said to me that we shot on anamorphic lenses because the courtroom was small, but we wanted it to feel big. And I always remembered that and thought, I got to remember how to work with perspective and make things. Uh, be ready to ask questions of your camera department and ask of ways to manipulate the imagery and make sure that you're giving the audience what you want them to feel. You are manipulating the audience mostly by way of editing. I think the editor is the real filmmaker. You're really making the movie again when you chop it up, but you can also manipulate on the day with how you're, as you said, constructing the shots. And I want to play with that more. I think the directorial feature that I plan to make this year, there's a oneer in all three acts, and I purposely have them like beginning as chapters where I get to do a fun sort of oneer type shot in each thing. And I think that's part of the fun of just like trying that out, and not just copy and pasting what you see from movies you love, but having a reason to use them too.
That's amazing. And I really look forward to seeing your feature debut when it's all said and done. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Paul. It's been a great time chatting with you, and I hope we get to see you soon once everything's all done here.
This was fun. This actually felt like a tease. I miss film festivals. I miss the film community. I miss, getting to go to those cocktail mixers and Q&As and panel discussions, and hopefully we'll be back doing it in the next 6 to 9 months here.
Well, we'll get you back here as soon as we can.
Please do. I'd love to, man. God bless you.
All right. Same to you.
Peace.